Post 1. AITA for blowing up at my mother-in-law after my daughter was hospitalized for drinking her oils. My wife Sophie, 30F, and I, 31M, have a 5-year-old daughter, Ava. Last weekend was the first time we ever let my mother-in-law, Linda, keep Ava overnight. I'd been hesitant for a long time, because while Linda means well, she's deeply involved in one of those wellness MLMs. You know the type: essential oils, miracle drops, powders that boost your immune system, and cleanse toxins. I've always been polite about it, but I don't trust her judgment when it comes to medical stuff. She's the kind of person who'll say, "You don't need antibiotics, just rub this on your feet and pray." Sophie's been trying to rebuild her relationship with her mom, so when Linda offered to watch Ava for a weekend to give us a break, Sophie really wanted to say yes. I said no at first. I reminded her that Linda has, in the past, ignored our parenting rules, like giving Ava candy for dinner or letting her stay up until midnight, because grandma time is special. Sophie told me I was overreacting, that Linda had gotten better, and that it was just one night. I finally gave in. I told myself I was being overprotective. That was a mistake I'll never stop kicking myself for. We dropped Ava off Saturday morning. Linda greeted us with her usual energy, all hugs and comments about how Ava was such an old soul and how she needed her oils balanced. Sophie rolled her eyes, but I let it slide. Ava was happy, and we promised we'd pick her up Sunday evening. Sunday night, we walked into Linda's house expecting to find them watching a movie or baking cookies. Instead, Ava was curled up on the couch, pale, sweating, and moaning that her stomach hurt. There was an open bottle of essential oils on the coffee table. I immediately asked what happened. Linda froze, then said, "Oh, she must have gotten into that when I was in the kitchen. I told her it wasn't for kids." Ava looked too weak to talk. I didn't waste time arguing. I scooped her up and told Sophie to grab her bag. Linda followed us to the door, rambling about how it wasn't that bad and kids get curious. We got to the ER within 15 minutes. The doctors were concerned right away. They did blood work and said she had signs of poisoning, the kind of thing you see when someone ingests high-concentration essential oils. They kept